and Kaos. A deadbeat's journey through the underground. Interviews, music, punk, community. Attitude. Sunday nights, 10 p.m. to 12. CRCfm 102.9.
Hi, I'm Aidan from Protex, based here in Belfast, and this song's called Strange.
Always a part of this scene that they live for. You wanna be like the boy next door, oh yeah. Young in heart, young in mind. They know the world's unkind. Young in heart, young in mind. Searching for a dream that's hard to find. Look at all strange things, doing all their own things. Young in heart, young in mind.
Aidan, great to have you on the show. And Protex, a band formed in 1978 amidst the first wave of Belfast punk rock, like Undertones, Outcasts, Rudy, that kind of stuff. You were noticed, I suppose you caught Terry Hooley's eyes and ears, and he had you on Good Vibrations, and then that moved over to Rough Trade, and then it became Polydor, and all while you're still at school. And what was it like? That's some acceleration, like while you're still at school.
Yeah, well, it was all good fun at the time. I suppose the starting point for me would be myself and the Protex drummer, the original drummer, not the drummer who's playing with us in this form of Protex. Owen was his name. We were good mates, and this was like when we were 12 or 13 years old, and we just started putting the band together, playing covers at that time. We weren't sport orientated really. We were into our music. So we were playing stuff like Dr. Feelgood, Thin Lizzy, Rory Gallagher, and also Buddy Holly.
So you were quite the guitarist even at that age, like you.
Well, it was the strum. I strummed guitar really, and I still do, I think. And but yes, I started at an early age, I suppose, and yeah, I suppose my first gig was when I was 14, to performing to the public as such. Um, so yeah, we were playing, doing that sort of stuff for fun, and then listening to John Peel in later years. and we got interested, and we loved punk and new wave. And we saw some of the bands who came over at that stage. First band to come over to Belfast was the Clash, because there was no bands played here apart from Rory Gallagher, who played every Christmas because of the Troubles.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Clash gig didn't actually take place because of insurance reasons. The insurance company pulled the plug at the last minute. And of course, all the punks were out in the streets, and there was riots going on. The police came in, so it was great, heavy duty stuff for us teenagers. So,
The Clash loved it.
oh yeah. Well, they got great publicity out of that tour, didn't they? And all those photographs outside the barricades and all that, they made the most of it. But that night we actually met the Clash, and we spent a few hours speaking to it, mostly Strummer and Jones.
All right.
And we were just totally gobsmacked and enlightened with everything. And we decided, right, this is what we want to do. We want to write our own stuff, first of all. And we want to play with the attitude these guys with their records. They seem to, they were able to get that onto the records. So when the Clash came back a few weeks or a few months later and were able to gig, at that gig, Joe Strummer, always remember he had said, right, this next song is for the people of Belfast, Protex Blue. So our bass player said, right, we've got to call ourselves Protex Blue, but we later dropped the blue because people thought we were a blues band. And it's a great song. So
It is a brilliant album and a brilliant song indeed.
yeah.
But so that's something. So you're at that stage. I suppose you're getting over. You're a young band still in school, and then you're suddenly being
Yeah.
asked to go to London, I suppose, and be talking.
Yeah, well, we were playing locally. There was a scene starting. I just remember just before Terry Hooley and Good Vibrations got off the ground, and before Rudy's first single, Big Time, was released, we started playing as a serious band. Well, we thought we were a serious band. And Terry invited us to do a gig with Stiff Little Fingers and Rudy, I think it was, at the Glenmacken Hotel. And after that gig, which I think it was maybe our third or fourth gig
Right.
that we ever had done. And Terry says, will you come record that song, that Don't Ring Me Up song? It's fantastic. So we recorded that, and it was released in Good Vibrations. And it was the sixth, Got Six, it was called, of Terry's releases. Now, I think the Undertones were one before that, maybe two before that.
Right.
So the Undertones just got signed then, and there's a lot of interest in Belfast, and A&R and A&R guys from the major labels were coming over and stuff. So there's few ones expressed interest in us as well. But Terry brought us over to do a John Peel session.
Right.
And so we got invited there. And you're right, we were still at school, and we got the boat over and the overnight train from Scotland down to London.
That
And
must have
went
been
to the BBC.
something from Belfast to the
It
BBC.
was a great crack, and a lot of drink on the train, a lot of carryouts on the train. And yeah, so we recorded that, my first time ever out of Ireland. And that session created a lot of interest for us among labels in England.
Right.
And soon Terry was getting contacted by different A&R guys from labels. Cut a long story short, Polydor came over and they signed us at a gig up in Port Stewart in a venue called Spuds. And yeah, so that changed things for us. We were still at school.
Yeah, but you're in Belfast and you're saying like you're playing a few local gigs. And I suppose you'd be kind of asked nearly to go to London at that stage in this late.
Well, we wanted to. A lot of the bands claim that they didn't want to. But I suppose by accepting a contract from a major label enabled us, well, we got a sizable cash advance, which gave us a lot of freedom. And through the music and through this, we were able to go to London. We thought that's where the center of the universe was. And certainly for music, for touring, for everything else, it was at that time. So yes, we after our A levels at school, we transferred over. We got up
You
and went
toured with the
over.
Boomtown Rats or something, didn't you, around that time?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Well, first we went over in 1979. We relocated. We moved into the Boomtown Rats house that they had been renting
All right.
because they'd come over from Dublin a year or two before.
Yeah.
And so they moved out and we moved in, and we went at that stage. The first thing we did when we, as well as gigging the clubs in London, we're recording in Rack Studios, St John's Wood, which was owned by Mickey Most. But yes, we got an offer then.
Was that produced by, was it Chaz Chandler, guy who did Hendrix and the Animals?
That would come later,
Was it?
a
All
month
right.
or two later.
Yeah.
But after those sessions in Rack Studio, we got offered the Boomtown Rats UK tour, 1979, and they were at the top of their game with the Don't Like Mondays.
Yeah.
So we were playing all the big theatres and getting exposure that way as the opening act. Whether, looking back now, I'm not sure whether that was the right thing to do or not, because maybe it would have been better to do a club tour with the likes of the Buzzcocks or the Undertones, or
Yeah.
rather than.
Was it just overwhelming because you're so young, or is it kind
Well,
of,
it
you
was
know, the way
just
like
what
they
we did.
say, Joe
We sort
Strummer
of,
famously says that a band needs to play every night for 100 nights or something like that. He's talking about you.
I would agree with that, because you just get tighter as a band and you just learn sort of to deal with things a wee bit better, and you get a wee bit slicker, and your
You know what to
nerves
expect, I
are all.
suppose. The other thing is you know what to expect as you're going.
You know what to expect more. Yeah, you do. So yeah, that was good. But those sessions at Rack Studios weren't particularly good, we didn't think. And the producer, he was a guy, George Jones was his name, and he kind of, because we were a melodic type of band, he said, right, put another harmony on there, put another harmony. So we wasted hours doing these harmonies, and we ended up sounding like the fucking PTs or something. And so we weren't happy with that. And Polydor backed us. They realized that we weren't happy with it.
Yeah.
So Polydor got this guy who was a famous Polydor producer with the likes of Slade and Jimi Hendrix, and he played this Chaz Chandler. He played in the Animals. He played bass. So it was decided that, yeah, that would be a good match to Protex, because the A&R guy said, what's your favorite? What do you listen to? And I said, well, I always listened to Slade and T-Rex when I was younger, and I love that sound of Slade.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's Chaz Chandler was brought in, and we did the Strange Obsessions album. So that was
But
fun.
that
So
wasn't
that was
released.
good.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Strange Obsessions, you have to kind of go fast forward to
You're absolutely
2010, and you have, isn't it Sing Sing Records in New York or something, who brings out Strange Obsessions, which hadn't been released. And then at that
You've
stage,
done your research very well.
but then you're
Sorry, I had to,
basically,
I had to, I had to put that in.
you're, thanks. You're basically
But
being dragged back then by popular demand. So you reform at that stage, and
well,
you do
yeah,
Spain and Japan and stuff like that, which is, serious. And then like you're releasing another album in was a Tightrope in 2016, I
that's right.
think. And
Yeah,
then you have, after that, you've European tours, you played Rebellion, you played the 100 Club, you've done, like, you've ticked all the boxes at this stage. Like, it's an impressive kind of resume of a band to do it. How is it
yeah,
these days? How is it these days for Protex?
it's brilliant. We just would love to get more gigs and just continue gigging. You're only as good as your last gig, and your last gig could actually, the last gig that we did could be our last gig. You just don't know what's around the
Actually,
corner.
we're playing with you next Sunday.
Well, that's right. Hopefully that's not the last gig either now. So,
Indeed, indeed.
yeah, no, it's great fun. I'm speaking to guys who are playing like any of their cast guys, whatever. I mean, we all love it, and we're just so lucky still to be doing it. I think.
Yeah, class. And you were talking there just a while ago about how you're melodic, and how basically one producer had kind of made you maybe overly melodic and that pitch
Yeah,
song and that. But there is a very definite, like when I listen to your stuff, it's kind of there's the Clash in there, obviously, and there's the jam influences you can hear to my ears, you know what I mean? And the buzz
yeah.
cuts, the melody, the buzz cuts, or even the Kinks, maybe. I don't know, like it is
It's,
this.
yeah,
There is
people
a
have
melody, but it's
focused.
still biting, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And the themes of your songs, like a lot of it seems like unrequited love there or something going on. Like I know you're
Yeah,
young lads at the time, but what is it? Where is it coming from? All the music.
I think it's still coming from the Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly, that side
Right.
of things, sort
Yeah.
of with the maybe a punk uh, attitude and sound on the guitar and more aggressive approach to it. I think that's really what it is. It's more, it's like rock and roll still as well as in there. And yeah,
Oh,
people laugh at that.
so Protex is a rock and roll band that met Joe Strummer and Mick Jones one night.
So, I
That
suppose it
was
is,
it.
and they turned us around, and we got our sound and our enthusiasm and our attitude. Yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose that's it.
class,
I suppose
class. What would
yeah,
be, ask you a few questions. What would be memorable gigs for you? You've done a lot. Like you've done the 100 Club, the Rebellion, you've done South by Southwest over in the States. I think you reformed, was it in New York or something like that? So
yeah.
any gigs that kind of wowed you?
There's quite a few gigs. I mean, I don't have a memory of a really bad gig, although
Yeah,
we did have bad gigs. But I suppose I remember those very early Heart Bar days in Belfast when we were kids and we couldn't really play that well. Some people say we still can't play that well. But I do remember those as just being great fun and we were learning things as we went along. And there was such a scene there. Um, I would have to say as well, I remember the first night of the Boomtown Rats tour in Liverpool. It was the Liverpool Empire.
yeah.
And there was like walking on across the stage, and there was like 4 or 5 thousand people in front of you. And really, we had just come from the bars and the clubs. So that was very interesting. I'll always remember that. Um, and I'll remember places like the Hope and Anchor. That was Hope and Anchor Club in London was the first London gig we did.
Brilliant.
Um, and I had always heard about the Hope and Anchor, the Stranglers recorded stuff there, and it did a lot of gigs there. And I had this impression of my mind that it was some big hall, but when we arrived, it was the basement of a pub, a tiny room. So which was fine and was great for us and great gigs. But I
But a lot
remember
of the
that.
famous venues are, or a lot of the
Yeah,
legendary venues are, like, isn't the 100 Club, you've a pillar
Marquee,
right
we
in the
did
middle of
all
the
that. The
stage.
Marquee, yeah, the 100 Club, the Marquee Club, and the New York clubs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so many good memories. So it's just a joy to play, really.
Yeah, and you're still playing around, like you're doing well, like as you said, like you're looking for gigs around Ireland or something like that. Like
Well, yeah, I
it's
mean,
hard. I
we're
suppose
up.
there isn't a lot of venues in Ireland, and there isn't a lot of scenes to take. Kind of, you know, there's a lot of underground, and then there's sort of the massive bands that come over. There really is a kind
Yeah,
of a gap, I suppose, for a gig that's more kind of punk rock, that kind of a
yeah.
level. How
I
you
think
find
it's
it? Have you played around Ireland much?
no, we haven't, and we'd love to. We played. We had a great gig there over summer in July in Waterford, Lucas Records and Decks. And that was really, we didn't know what to expect. And it was one of the best gigs and most memorable gigs. And it really brought us back to sort of basics because people standing right there in front of you. And the atmosphere was just, it was stuffed and everybody was all part of it.
Yeah,
And
brilliant.
so that was great. And I'd love to be doing more stuff like that. And I'd love to be doing more stuff in Ireland. So if anybody is listening, we want to play more gigs. I would have to say as well that in my opinion, I think there's a better scene in Dublin as well than there would be up north here for.
You think? Jesus, I've always had the opposite opinion when I have like at the
I mean,
moment Belfast, like
for
you
local,
have like what do you call it? Somehow sentient. You have No Matter. You have Takers and Users. All of these bands and a few
you have
festivals.
the bands. You haven't got that many venues there, but in
No, not to
Belfast,
the same size. Like I suppose in Dublin, you do have the Grand Social, and you do have the Sound
yeah.
House, places like that that are
And I think you've got
factory all that.
guy. I think you've got a lot of guys really putting shows on as well.
Yeah.
Who are trying hard. We've a few people here work very hard at it as well in Belfast, but we seem to get more gigs in Dublin than we would in Belfast.
All right.
So
So anybody
whatever.
listening
I
in,
don't know why
if you
that
want
is.
if you want to score a coup and have Protex, get onto them.
Yeah, we did.
How about
Yes. So
recordings? What about recordings these days? How long has it been since the
yeah.
last release, or are you thinking of writing more, or what are you doing?
Yeah, well, our last release was an album called Wicked Ways, which we recorded here in Earth Music Studios, Belfast. And it was recorded just before COVID. And then it was put on hold during COVID. And we finished it just after and we released it. So that was probably released 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
So next month is what? October. So we've a few dates in Germany towards the end of October, but before we do that, we're going into the studio, the same studio, and start recording the next album because at the moment I've got about 10 songs, so I need another two.
Yeah.
And then there's an album's worth there. So we're hoping to have an album released next year sometime.
I always ask bands who are on the show because there's a lot of punk rockers are musicians themselves and all that, and I suppose
Yeah.
I find it a fascinating thing. How do you do your recording yourself? Some bands like they play to a click, the drums goes down, and then every instrument in succession. Others play in a live room and a few overdubs after. What's your preferred for Protex?
Well, that's an interesting story and interesting conversation because the way with the original Protex way back in the late 70s and with Chaz Chandler, his band was the Animals in the 60s, and he did Slade and all that there. But he had us, and it was old school, and it was more, we recorded it all together. We played the song together.
Yeah.
And then he listened through, and he kept what bits were good, and there was overdubs after that.
Yeah.
So I was always used to doing that, and then when that version of Protex stopped, and I started recording again the first album, which I can't remember when it was it 2015? Going into the studio, it was this is the way you do it now. We record the drums and the bass together, then we put the guitar on, and you're in the beside the desk, just sitting down in the chair playing this guitar. And I thought this is a bit weird, but that's how the newer Protex album was done. But we were asked before summer there a few months ago to do a podcast, a live session in the studio. And I think the result of that, it was all live, was far, far better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always ask fans. I see time is coming.
Yeah.
I see time is coming against me here, but I always ask bands that because I'm always fascinated what works for bands.
Yeah.
That whole live spurt versus, whether you're doing it
Well,
piece by piece.
For our sort of music, that's the key to it.
Yeah.
And although I'm proud of the recent albums we did, I think that the next album will be better for that reason because it will feel even more live.
Well, I'll have to have you on the show again before you release that and tell us all about it. Listen, thanks very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kaos. A deadbeat's journey through the underground. Interviews, music, punk, community. Attitude. Sunday nights, 10 p.m. to 12. CRCfm 102.9.